bring your selected ones to life. It's not a coincidence that you're watching this at the moment. It's predetermined. When it comes to spiritual battle, there are no accidents. You have been targeted, as evidenced by your being here. More significantly, though, it signifies that you have been selected. Most likely, you have sensed it. The tremendous energy attempting to break you, the resistance, and the inexplicable attacks. It isn't paranoid. It's true. However, the majority of people will not inform you that spiritual attacks happen at random. They are precise, well-planned, and designed to halt you before you realize your full potential. The good news is that if you're being attacked, it's because the powers who flourish in darkness are afraid of you. They wouldn't expend efforts on a trivial person. That indicates that they are afraid of something valuable, strong, and divine that is inside of you. What they don't want you to know, though, is this: you are not helpless. Only those who have been awakened can access hidden methods, spiritual tactics, and invisible protective regions. And I will demonstrate their application for you today. You will have a deeper understanding of spiritual warfare at the end of this. You will be able to prevent attacks before they even get to you. Let's get started. First place, understand that attacks are targeted, not arbitrary. Spiritual assaults are never haphazard. They are accurate, well thought out, and made to strike you where it hurts the most. Have you ever questioned why some challenges seem to be a perfect fit for you? Or why the same flaws, worries, or phobias keep coming up? That's why. These assaults are not rash decisions made in the dark. They are carefully positioned blows intended to target your blind spots, deepest wounds, and unhealed trauma. The forces opposing you are aware of the exact things that will cause you to become unstable. They don't waste time attacking your strong points. Instead, they focus on the patterns that keep you trapped, the emotional triggers that cause you to spiral, and the ideas that cause you to doubt yourself. The attack is always precisely crafted to fit into your life so naturally that you think it happened by accident, unlucky, or simply the way things are. For this reason, your first line of defense should be self-awareness. You will continue to fall into the same traps if you are unaware of your weaknesses. Those who exhaust you, they weren't accidentally sent. The unexpected surge of fatigue, that's not random when you're about to advance. The impulse to harm oneself is when everything begins to line up. It's intentional. Until it is too late, you are unlikely to detect the attack's form. Most people never look for the cause of their symptoms. They make an effort to maintain their optimism while ignoring the root causes of their negativity. They cut off poisonous individuals, but they don't inquire as to why they continue to draw the same kind of energy. The external attack isn't the main fight. The attack can be successful because of the internal access points. You don't have to be more powerful. You must be more intelligent. Examine the trends in your difficulties. Where do you get hit all the time? Which feelings are turned against you? Which thoughts put you at risk? You eliminate the attack's power as soon as you determine its accuracy. Only anything you haven't mastered can be used by the enemy. Second place, before engaging, learn to read energy contracts. An agreement is the first step in any spiritual assault, whether or not you are aware of it. Rituals and ceremonies are not the only ways that energetic contracts are written. They are shaped by relationships, feelings, ideas, and beliefs. An unseen contract that permits certain energies to affect you is made the instant you accept an idea, participate in a poisonous dynamic, or believe a limiting concept. The majority of people are stuck because they have unwittingly chosen to be negative, not because they are weak. Consent is required for forces to function. Consent, however, isn't always clear. It may come from familiarity, dread, or even uncertainty. You've already made a deal with hardship if you were raised to think that hardship is a necessary part of life. You've made a deal that prevents love from coming to you if you think you're not deserving. You're creating a contract that lets your energy be sucked if you're always with folks who drain you. There is a contract tied to every recurring event in your life. Who wrote the terms is the question. The most common mistake people make is to believe that they must directly combat every attack. Some conflicts are resolved by contract cancellation rather than resistance. Removing the agreement that makes you a match for oppression does not mean you have to resist it. If you reject the contract that made certain thoughts a part of your reality, you don't have to struggle with them. For this reason, awareness is essential. You'll keep questioning why you're caught in a cycle that you can't escape to protect yourself if you don't recognize you've agreed to anything. Examine your energy's direction first. In what circumstances do you continue to feed? When you say, "This is just the way life is," which beliefs do you consistently reinforce? Every time you declare, "I have no choice," you are reinforcing a contract. You consent to conditions that you never knowingly consented to. Protection is only one aspect of spiritual strength. It's about taking back control of what you let into your world. Unless you continue to sign it, no contract can hold you. Third, rather than fighting the thing, starve it. Direct confrontations are not usually the form of spiritual attacks. They typically function as parasites, consuming your reactions, feelings, and energy. They get stronger the more you interact with them. Because of this, confronting them directly frequently causes more harm than help. The attack is not broken by resistance alone. It gives it energy. The actual plan is to deprive the entity of its necessities in order to starve it. Dark forces feed on your emotional energy, and as long as it's strong, they don't care if it is positive or bad. Energy sources include preoccupation, fear, rage, and frustration. You're feeding the attack when you think about it all the time, respond to every trigger, or become overly analytical. You're still interacting with the force, which means you're maintaining it, even if your goal is to fight back. It gets weaker the less attention you give it. Reaction-based manipulation is one of the energy-feeding strategies that is most often ignored. This occurs when an outside force, a person, an idea, or an occasion, is intended to agitate you. Bait is the attack. You get entangled the instant you take it. You get protective. You can either act frustrated or try to explain yourself. Your energy is now trapped in the circumstance, and the power causing it has achieved its goal. You don't have to be destroyed by it. To break free, all you have to do is keep responding. You must deny the attack its purpose. This refers to purposefully rerouting energy rather than repressing feelings. Change your focus to clarity if something makes you feel afraid. When anything tries to drain you, you react by remaining still. Instead of proving yourself, strengthen your inner authority if an attack makes you feel weak. Spiritual parasites require a host in order to survive. When you don't participate, they have nothing left to hold on to. Counterattack isn't always the best defense strategy. It can be indifferent at times. The attack loses its meaning when it no longer influences your emotional state. Eventually, a force that no longer has control over you vanishes. The fourth step decodes your attack's patterns and symbols. Spiritual assaults are rarely haphazard. There are hints left by the patterns they follow. It's not simply poor luck if you continue to encounter the same difficulties, whether they be related to individuals, numbers, or circumstances. It's a script, a cyclical pattern that keeps you stuck. Here's the trick, though. Each attack exposes a unique blueprint. You can escape it if you can figure out the pattern. During difficult times, pay attention to the numbers being repeated. The numbers 11, 11, 444, and 911 aren't merely coincidences if you frequently see them during difficult times. They serve as indicators of what is taking place underneath the surface. There are some numbers that indicate danger. Others point to a potential shift. The secret is to pay attention to what's going on in your life at the time they appear. Examine the kinds of persons who consistently appear in your life. Are you drawn to those that cause deep wounds, trainers, manipulators, or energy all the time? These people are more than just challenging. They represent something more profound. They stand for unsolved lessons or exploited flaws. The attack isn't about them if the same kind of individual keeps showing up in your life. It's about the aspects of yourself that you haven't yet acknowledged or repaired. And situations recur. You can see that something always pulls you back just when you're ready to make a breakthrough. An unanticipated betrayal, an abrupt crisis, and a surge of fatigue. Because they are a component of the screenplay meant to keep you in place, these setbacks have a pattern. By responding differently, you can begin to stop the pattern once you've determined when and how they happen. Predictability is essential to spiritual attacks. When you respond consistently, they function best. However, the approach becomes less effective if you identify the pattern and break it. The script breaks down the instant you cease performing your designated role in the cycle. By refusing to be influenced by the same strategies repeatedly, you can rewrite your spiritual story in this way. Fifth, reverse engineer the attack's origin. Attacks on spirituality are not random. They do more than merely stir up trouble. They help someone or something. The true power lies in taking a step back and wondering, who benefits if I stay weak, rather than responding hastily. The response will take you directly to the attack's origin. The source can occasionally be external. An atmosphere that drains your energy, a toxic person, or a spiritual entity that takes advantage of your hardship. Some people are intentionally or unintentionally utilized as negative conduits. Take note of the people who constantly ruin your work, sap your energy, or lead you astray. Not everything is personal. Occasionally, they are merely the representative of a more powerful entity that perceives you as a danger. To blame is not the aim. The goal is to identify the pattern so that its influence can be eliminated. The source is internal in other cases. A former self that is resistant to change. Not every spiritual attack originates from an external source. Some come from within. Even when the familiar is dangerous, the mind clings to it. It's not merely an external attack if you experience anxiety, self-sabotage, or overwhelming doubt whenever you attempt to elevate. It's a component of your resistance to change. Staying weak helps the previous version of you because it maintains security, comfort, and predictability. Attacks that combine an external force taking advantage of an interior weakness are the most dangerous. Attacks feel personal because of this. They go after things that are already brittle. The easiest entrance points are underlying insecurities, unsolved phobias, and unhealed traumas. Until an outside force finds something inside of you to hold on to, it cannot control you. Defense alone is not the answer. The root is being removed. Put an end to responding to the symptoms and begin tearing down the base that allows the attack to occur. Get rid of the energetic tie if it's a person. Rewrite the story if it's a belief. Whether it's an inside fear that needs to be addressed directly, launch an assault. When you take away the reason people were able to contact you in the first place, you cease to be effective. Number 6. Use energy encryption to strengthen your aura's firewall. Your aura is the field of energy that envelopes you and serves as your spiritual boundaries. However, the majority of people have leaky auras that are filled of holes from unguarded interactions, negative thought habits, and past trauma. External forces can easily invade, influence, and drain you without your resistance because of these weak points. Similarly, a computer that isn't protected by a firewall is susceptible to viruses. An aura is vulnerable to attack if it lacks energetic encryption. Cleaning alone is not the answer to protection. Your energy field is being programmed to automatically reject intrusion. In the spiritual world, everything is based on permission and frequency. There is no intrusion of negative influences. They sneak through doors that are open. Your unconscious agreements, uncertainties, and worries. Any energy can enter your aura if it isn't programmed with certain boundaries. This explains why some people experience persistent fatigue, anxiety, or mental fog. Their aura becomes vulnerable after engaging with specific individuals or being in particular environments, absorbing everything like a sponge. Energetic encryption, which functions as a spiritual firewall by encoding instructions into your energy field, is the answer. This entails establishing precise, unchangeable guidelines for what may and cannot access you. It goes beyond simply thinking optimistically. The goal is to establish an energetic, unbreakable law that deters low-frequency forces before they even get to you. These straightforward but impactful sentences are not affirmations. They are orders. They become ingrained in your aura structure with repeated reinforcement, effortlessly warding off spiritual interference. Attacks eventually stop leaking, your energy stops leaking, and you continue living your life unaffected by the things that used to sap you. After an attack occurs, most people attempt to defend themselves. They don't happen at all when there is a strong aura. Close the gaps, encrypt your energy, and block anything that doesn't help you before it even gets a chance. 7th place. To become invisible, employ dimensional cloaking. Predators who are spiritual, whether they are beings or not, only what they can sense can be attacked by energy, vampires, or manipulators. They cannot get to you if they are unable to sense you. It's not always about fighting or protecting to avoid attacks. It's figuring out how to vanish without moving. Dimensional cloaking is useful in this situation. In the spiritual world, everything is based on resonance and frequency. Dark forces search for energy signatures that correspond to their inner chaos, fear, wrath, insecurity, or vibration. You become an easy target when you emit these frequencies because you stand out like a beacon. However, you become energetically invisible when you enter a state of neutrality or quiet. You cease transmitting a trackable signal. Obsessing over an opponent causes unconscious broadcasting that most individuals are unaware of. Feel scared all the time or act dramatic. You clearly communicate your spiritual location. It is easier for outside forces to capture your energy when you are more reactive. This explains why some people continue to have attacks. They vibrate at a frequency that predators may detect, inadvertently keeping themselves noticeable. Your energetic footprint is reduced as a result of dimensional cloaking. It doesn't imply numbness or the repression of feelings. It refers to achieving a state in which your energy is so calm and balanced that it becomes part of the spiritual field's background. Spiritual warfare experts do more than just defend oneself. They can be tracked. Since their frequency doesn't register as a target, they can pass through hostile energy undetected. Complete inaction is the quickest way to hide your identity. You disappear as soon as you stop adding emotion to an attack. Spiritual beings are unable to consume what they cannot see. When they are unable to elicit a response, those with bad intentions become disinterested. When you cease participating, toxic cycles discontinue. You become untouchable in this way. Removing yourself from the battlefield completely is more effective than fighting harder. 8th, stop using unintentional agreements to leak power. Being overpowered by an external force is not necessarily the cause of spiritual attacks. They frequently result from unintentional permissions you granted. In your energy field, these unspoken agreements or permissions function as open doors. They provide outside entities unrestricted access to and control over your reality. Because these contracts were not written in English, the majority of people are unaware that they have signed them. They were shaped by unhealed wounds, fear, self-doubt, and trauma. You commit to living under the impact of a limiting notion about yourself each time you adopt it. You made an energetic contract that permits rejection and abandonment to recur in your life if you were informed as a child that you are unworthy of love and you internalized it. You unwittingly accepted a world where hardship is the norm if you have ever claimed, "Nothing ever works out for me." These agreements are ingrained in your mind, influencing your experiences, decisions, and attacks. The fact is, though, that unless you decide to keep it, no contract is ever final. Just as you unwittingly entered into these contracts, it is within your power to revoke them. Direct command is the most efficient method of breaking these secret contracts. I cancel all covert contracts, agreements, and authorizations that don't further my best interests. This is a spiritual reset rather than merely an affirmation. It closes the gaps that let negative forces attach to you by sending a shockwave across your energy field when stated with complete intention. However, if a contract is not replaced, simply terminating it is insufficient. After terminating an old agreement, draft a new one that reflects your desired reality. I now only take on contracts that fit my divine power, strength, and clarity. If you continue to face the same difficulties, spiritual attacks flourish in areas where permission is not resolved. What did I consent to that made this possible in my life? Those forces cease to exist as soon as you regain control. What they no longer have authorization to touch, they cannot attack. The Trojan horse of misleading light is recognized by number 9. Darkness does not launch one of the most deadly spiritual assaults. It is cloaked as light. Not all intuitive cues or guiding spirits are heavenly. Some are Trojan horses that try to get past your defenses by posing as protective, enlightened, or even helpful. Even the most dishonest attacks don't defeat you. They mislead you into self-righteous fantasies, false awakenings, and ego traps. You are not immediately attacked by false light troops. Rather, they use the appropriate words at the appropriate moment to feed your needs, anxieties, or insecurities while convincing you that you're headed in the correct direction. They can say that you've attained a point where you can't be tricked, that you're spiritually better than other people, or that you don't need to doubt yourself anymore. You've already been duped the instant you stop asking questions. Many people have false awakenings, believing they have attained a greater level of understanding when, in reality, they have been lured into an illusion caused by their ego. They become fixated on their own imagined enlightenment, pursue teachings that divert them from their true mission, or mistake emotional highs for spiritual truth. It becomes more difficult to realize that they have been guided in circles rather than ahead the further they go. The true test of spiritual direction is what it exposes, not how it makes you feel. Truth frequently makes you face things you'd prefer avoid, humbles you, and challenges you. Your ego quietly draws you into superiority or seclusion by making you feel exceptional. A genuine mentor doesn't make you feel important, demand your devotion, or satisfy your desire for approval. It helps you stay anchored in reality and returns you to your own judgment. The secret is to challenge everything, including comforting things. An energy is not necessarily a guide just because it says so. An instruction, voice, or message isn't divine if it makes you reliant on it rather than giving you strength. It's covert manipulation. Combat Master Thought number 10. Kill the opponent before it has a chance to fully develop. Before it ever shows up in your life, every spiritual attack begins as a seed or concept that is sown in your mind. The physical world is not the true battlefield. It can be found in your subconscious behaviors, feelings, and ideas. You can eliminate an attack before it ever materializes if you can stop it in its tracks. Forms of thought are dynamic structures. They acquire authority as you interact with them more. Just a basic question. What if I don't succeed? It begins as a murmur. It expands if you give it attention. You start visualizing failure, experiencing the feelings that go along with it, and automatically adjusting your behavior to fit that scenario. The mental form becomes ingrained and manifests as actual failure, self-sabotage, or procrastination. The attack is more than just a concept by the time it materializes. Your lived experience is what it is. Thought forms are weapons of suggestion used by dark forces. They don't have to hurt you physically. They simply sow an idea and then let you ruin yourself. Thoughts driven by fear, doubtful cycles, and unexpected bursts of despair. All of these are indicators of an impending attack. You can eliminate them before they become an issue if you catch them early. The method is straightforward, yet it demands quick transformation and mastery. Don't resist a negative notion as soon as it occurs. Redirect its energy by instantly substituting a thought of power for the one that is falling into uncertainty. Don't dispute with the attack if it claims you're not strong enough. Disregard it. I cannot be touched. Don't give in to fear if it arises. Rebut it. I don't own this energy. I'm going to release it now. This is effective because thought forms depend on your belief to endure. They lose steam and dissipate the instant you don't participate. Spiritual masters do more than merely repel attacks. Before they take shape, they get rid of them. You can prevent intrusive thoughts from controlling you by learning to identify them when they arise. On the battlefield, the most formidable fighters avoid engaging in combat. Before they ever get there, they destroy them. Number 11. Recognize that the hidden attacker may be your own shadow. Not all spiritual assaults are the result of external interference. With unhealed wounds, repressed anger, and buried worries that have turned against you, you may be the one attacking yourself at times. Not all enemies are external. Occasionally, it's the shadow you choose to ignore. Everything you've repressed, including sadness, anger, and worries you've never voiced, is your shadow. You didn't confront. Unresolved energies don't simply go away. Beneath the surface, they fester, waiting for a trigger to set them free. It may feel like an external assault when they do. However, it's actually your own energy working against you. From 22 hours, 35 minutes, and 7 seconds to 23 hours, 1 minute, and 2 seconds. Not sure? Consider the times when you are overcome by doubt. When you're on the verge of success, self-sabotage pulls you back. Or when you have a violent reaction to something small. These are not arbitrary. They are your shadow attempting to awaken. These internal wounds can function as parasites, draining your energy, warping your perceptions, and even drawing outside attacks that coincide with your internal conflict if they are not addressed. A spiritual attack that you are unaware is your own design is the most harmful kind. Ask yourself, is this really an outside force? If you find yourself caught in a cycle of betrayal, failure, or struggle, or am I reliving a past trauma? Because their subconscious is still operating from a place of sorrow, many people unintentionally bring about their own suffering. Ignoring or repressing your shadow is not the solution. It's to face it head-on. Recognize the aspects of yourself that experience fear, rejection, or abandonment. When these feelings come up, don't resist. Include them, rather than asking, why am I experiencing this? What am I supposed to learn from this? Eliminating your negative traits isn't the goal of shadow work. The goal is to recover the power that lies inside them. You shut the door to attacks that feed on your wounds when you mend what's inside. When you quit battling yourself, the war is over. Number 12. Use emotional alchemy to neutralize the onslaught. Spiritual assaults do more than only try to hurt you. Their goal is to manipulate your response. Anger, fear, and despair. These feelings aren't merely reactionary to an assault. They are the lifeblood that sustains it. Removing that fuel causes the attack to crumble under its own weight as soon as you have mastered emotional alchemy. Predictability is what dark powers thrive on. They anticipate certain reactions from you. Anger is paralyzed by fear, and blind despair is drained. The assaults are successful when you follow the required script. However, the cycle is completely broken when the energy is transformed rather than reacted to. Consider fear. The main weapon of low vibrational forces is fear since it depletes your energy and leaves you exposed. However, what if you get intrigued rather than retreating? Rather of thinking, I'm being attacked? What am I supposed to learn from this? Because curiosity turns you from a victim to an observer, the terror suddenly loses its power. Instead of being overcome by the onslaught, you are now analyzing it. Or get angry. One more strong weapon against you. It's easy to lose control, blow up, and say or do things that reduce your frequency when something provokes you. But what if, rather than responding, you take a moment to transform your rage into understanding and action? This is unfair. You also move. What does this tell us about my limits? Now, rather than allowing anger to control you, you're using its energy to fortify yourself. Transforming emotions into something constructive rather than repressing them is the core of emotional alchemy. Anger turns into power, and fear into awareness. Wisdom comes from pain. The instant you cease having surprise reactions, attacks cease to function. The forces that used to feed off of your misery now have nothing to cling to. Being impervious to attacks is not a sign of true spiritual mastery. Being untouchable in the face of adversity is the goal. Nothing can control you once you have emotional control. Number 13. Break the cycle of recurring attacks. You're not just unfortunate if you continue to face the same difficulties, disappointments, or spiritual assaults. A time loop has ensnared you. These are not arbitrary loops. Until you alter your response, the loop will reset and repeat itself. These cycles are intended to keep you stuck in predictable reactions, giving the impression that you're engaged in the same conflict all the time. Unresolved teachings provide the foundation of spiritual time loops. If an attack occurs repeatedly, it indicates that something within you is still responding in the same manner. One simple truth is understood by the cosmos or the forces that oppose you. The outcome will be the same if you react in the same manner. You are so trapped in the same emotional and energetic patterns as the loop goes on. Doing something you have never done before is the only way to escape. If you've always backed off from fear, confront it. If you've always reacted angrily, keep quiet in response. If fatigue has caused you to give up, keep going. The loop breaks when a new variable is added to the pattern since it no longer has the same criteria to continue. This explains why a lot of individuals feel stuck in life, coping with the same disappointments, toxic people, and betrayals. The energy underlying doesn't alter, even if the outward circumstances do. They may end a terrible relationship in order to get into a new one, might change occupations just to encounter the same annoyances. Although they are walking in a circle vigorously, they believe they are making progress. The instant you refuse to fulfill your part in the script, the attack is over. You must endure rather than view it as a test. Consider it a trend. You have to write it again. Unless you continue to feed it, no outside force can keep you stuck. The same answer. By altering your approach to the attack, you can escape conflicts that were intended to teach you rather than to define you. 14. Keep in mind that if you were not a threat, they wouldn't assault. The fact that you are being attacked indicates that you pose a greater threat than you may think. Attacks don't happen at random. Those who are helpless, unimportant, or spiritually unimportant do not experience them. They befall those who are upsetting the order, redistributing energy, and dispelling delusions. The stronger the attack, the more evidence there is that your own being, growth, and presence are appending something that doesn't want to be appended. Consider it. If there was no threat to them, would the dark forces spend their time on someone? Would energy, vampires, manipulators, or spiritual parasites target someone who was worthless? Those who are about to do something powerful are not the target of any attacks. Their purpose is to demoralize, destabilize, and persuade you to back up before you can fully embrace your power. Perceiving spiritual attacks as a sign of weakness is the worst mistake people make. Why me? They ask themselves. Why is this taking place? What do others see in me that I haven't yet fully recognized in myself? However, should be the true inquiry. It's not your weakness that's causing the attack. You are going to level up your life, which is why everything is happening. Something wants to halt it before it gets any worse, because people are noticing your influence and spiritual development. You do not panic when you recognize that this fear is no longer an option. You don't back down. You understand the attack as a validation of your importance. You double down rather than crumble. You speed up instead of slowing down. Every attack is an effort to prevent you from moving on to the next level. Therefore, you should respond by entering that stage with even greater assurance. The game completely shifts when you stop viewing yourself as the victim and begin to perceive yourself as the threat that they dread. Because you are weak, you are not the goal. Because of your power, you are the target. Act like it now. You were never intended to live a limited, uncertain, or fearful life. You are an unstoppable force just by virtue of encountering opposition. Those who are inconsequential are not attacked. They occur to people who are shattering boundaries, altering time, and assuming a role they were always destined to play. You finally understand the reality. You are more than a mere target. You are a game changer, a warrior, and a disruptor. The purpose of every test, challenge, and attack was to make you unbreakable, not to destroy you. You now know how to break through the patterns, dispel the energy, and bypass the programming that was put in place to keep you stuck in fearful and constrained patterns. You're not just protecting yourself anymore. The entire script is being rewritten by you. It is at this point that everything changes. You don't get smaller. You don't back down. You don't question your strength. You are aware of this. Resistance is not interpreted as an indication to halt. You interpret it as a signal to press on. You're not afraid of the attacks. You hone your mastery by using them as fuel. If you weren't powerful, they wouldn't come for you. If you weren't having an effect, they wouldn't fight you. And if you weren't meant for something bigger than themselves, they most definitely wouldn't try to stop you. Therefore, start acting like the fighter you are from now on. Talk with the confidence you've always possessed. You have already won, so you may go with confidence that nothing can break you. You are not merely enduring spiritual assaults. You are surpassing them, outwitting them, and making them helpless. It was never a question of whether you could prevail. The question was whether you would recognize yourself. And you do behave that way now. Don't keep this message to yourself if it resonated with you. To ensure you don't miss another insightful video like this one that demonstrates stepping into your power, subscribe to the channel, enable notifications, and leave a comment below. Most importantly, let me know which aspect you found most impactful. Tell someone you think should hear this. You never know who might be feeling lost, fighting spiritual attacks in silence, or doubting their own strength. They might be awakened, reminded of their identity, and assisted in escaping by this message. It's more than just a channel. It is a movement and a place for fighters, rebels, and those who don't want to be subdued. Join this group, and let's rise together if you're prepared to take full advantage of your power.